This review is spoiler-free. Very few movies exist that I've anticipated leading up to their release to the extent that I have with The Bad Guys 2. I mean that with all my heart. Each time we got a new trailer, official clip, piece of fan art, look at the behind the scenes, all of it felt like it gave me something new to look forward to. Time really does fly when you're having fun, because November to now has been a wild ride. And now having actually seen it, I may seem calm and collected right now on the outside, but this is me on the inside. What can I say? You guys know I'm a huge fan of these movies at this point. And let's just say that there were some very hyper-specific aspects of it that had me way more enthusiastic than the average fan of this franchise. This script did take a little longer to put together than I anticipated, but part of the reason for that is because not only did I watch this movie opening weekend, I traveled all the way to Philadelphia to do so with my best friends.
Everyone say Bad Guys 2! Let's go!
And that might make me more biased than I already expected to be with my initial impressions, because it was one of the best theatrical experiences and days in general of my life. The Bad Guys 2 is the 51st feature-length animated film produced by DreamWorks, with Pierre Perifel returning to direct alongside the head of character animation for the first film, JP Sands. It always inspires me when things like this happen, starting out working in a different technical category of a film and eventually being given a chance to direct. Rare for franchises, but can certainly prove to be for the best. Like how Jennifer Young Nelson started out as a storyboard artist on the first Kung Fu Panda before going on to make a sequel that improves on the already great original and what I consider to be their best film. It's interesting and really cool to see the full vision of a story in a fictional universe from someone who began by contributing to one specific part that makes it great. And I could not be happier that it was the man who oversaw the creative process of one of this franchise's strongest attributes. Cause I'm starting to realize that the character designs in this are pretty much my favorite in all of media. I don't have any kind of technical defense for that, it's literally just my personal preference.
She's a huge fan.
Big crime nerd.
There's an important bit of information that should be mentioned before talking about the animation in this movie. I didn't think we'd get to a point where generative AI art is where it is now. I had hoped that it would be a trend that died out in a similar way to NFTs, which I'm optimistic will happen eventually, just not anytime soon. Now that we've gone from people using it for bland memes and drawings to making feature-length films and TV episodes with it. What the defenders of this content have to realize is that algorithms do not come from scratch. They outsource from a bunch of already existing art, thereby plagiarizing the artists who worked on it. It's not rocket science, and is the easiest argument against framing this technology as some kind of revolutionary technological advancement. That being said, before The Bad Guys 2 came out, it was reported that the movie included the following legal disclaimer in the end credits.
All rights in this work are reserved for purposes of laws in all jurisdictions pertaining to data mining or AI training, including but not limited to Article 4.3 of Directive EU 2019-790. This work may not be used to train AI.
Oh, yeah, and apology, I wasn't really familiar with your game.
This is a very effective way of combating the rise of AI art in the entertainment industry. It would be very easy for them to simply take legal action against the corporations who steal from the movies to train their programs, but opting to make their stance like this instead is something that I think more studios should do. It seems like Universal wants to make their refusal to be compliant and letting this tech be normalized loudly and proudly in a way that you don't see with other studios. Back in 2024, they did something similar with Despicable Me 4 in the form of a Super Bowl TV spot that clearly makes fun of the people who think that this tech has any value. I'm not saying that every studio needs to take a comedic approach like this or incorporate it into their marketing, but disclaimers like this are things that I hope to see become industry standard in the future as long as Gen AI is around. Including this as part of the credits is a good way of explicitly protecting the work of the artists that worked on this film and acknowledging their contributions into making this movie look the way it does. I bring all this up as a preamble to my discussion of the film itself because, come on, you can't watch this movie and confidently say to me that an AI could even come close to replicating a film that's as spellbinding to look at as this one. The visuals of these movies are the one thing everyone collectively agrees are exceptional, and I wasn't intending on dedicating too much time to talking about it because of that, but it does warrant quite a bit of discussion. Everything about the animation makes the original feel smaller in all the right ways. movies. This comes from very strong direction that shines with the heists and action sequences, in addition to the introduction of new locations that emphasize the scope of the story this time around. It's an amazing way of expanding the world by allowing the characters to work outside their element, whether that be a wrestling arena or something as grand and out of this world on a literal level like outer space. Calling it an improvement doesn't feel right though. I definitely describe it more as an evolution building off of the already great action sequences that are just confined to a singular setting that the main characters navigate and spend their time in. The ones in this movie though are enthralling in how they're staged and are all really fun, carry a lot of tension, or both in a lot of cases. It's also cool to see the inclusion of hand-to-hand combat here. The fluidity of the characters' movements and expressions already do a lot in terms of aiding the physical comedy, which still carries over to here of course, but those things also prove to do so much in giving the choreography of the fight scenes this infectious edge that I couldn't get enough of. I'm someone who's always preferred being cartoony to realism, and this movie is one of the best cases as to why. Look, when I talk about how much I love these character designs and the way they move and their eyes, it's the eyes. That's why they're my favorite. I love these eyes so much. My point is, when I talk about how much I love them, I really mean it.
Big crime nerd.
So the animation is still excellent, but it is the most universally liked part about both these movies, independent of how you feel about the story and characters, which were things some people thought were a bit standard by comparison. The good news is, I have a lot to say about both of those as well, to the point where I'm not really sure where to start. We've got ourselves some new characters, a romance eager to be canonized amongst the fan base, and then we have Sharky.
Where's my flowers? Prego, cappuccino.
What would we do without you, Sharky? With the story of this movie, we're jumping 5 years into the future, or 4 technically, since there's a post-credits scene where we learn that they served a year-long sentence before their early release. And after failing to get back into society's good graces, negating their ability to have stability in their lives, they're forced to work with a new team of criminals on the rise, blackmailing them back into a life of crime by helping them pull a heist of their own. That's a very good setup for a second installment, both from a narrative and thematic standpoint. At first I didn't really see a reason for there to be as large of a time gap between 1 and 2, but it shows the extent to which barriers are put up to isolate ex-cons from moving forward and making a better life for themselves. It's not as pronounced of a theme as you'd expect it to be based on the trailers. It's mostly kept limited to the first act, but I think that was the better route to go because of their arc in the original. A large part of it is authenticity coming before public perception when it comes to their character. The idea of tackling the ways people are forced back into a life of crime as a survival strategy certainly would make for an interesting and topical story. But I personally don't think that was the right choice for this one, since it's an internal conflict that would result in them coming to a realization they've already learned at this point if the trajectory for them is to remain on the path to the good life. Having them remain firm in leaving their criminal past behind in spite of the adversity they still face because of their past keeps that in mind, and it makes you root for them. Well, that on top of them not missing a beat with how great their chemistry is with each other. It's what we learn later on separates them from Kitty, which I guess now it's time to talk about the girls. The bad girls.
You need work. We need extra hands.
Is there a reason why they're not actually called that in the movie? I think that's kind of weird with how much they were marketed as that.
So you're like the bad girl.
Bad girls.
The bad girl.
The bad girls.
Big crime nerd.
This is where we segue into my biggest problem with the original. I've given Professor Marmalade a bit too much credit as a villain. The things I've said I like about him before are things I still like. The way he emotionally manipulates Wolfie, and how he weaponizes the way he's perceived by society to get away with what the bad guys can't. But then you take a look at him alongside the antagonists that follow in his footsteps. They've been committing their crimes in the shadows, filling the absence left behind by the bad guys as the city's most notorious criminals. Because of their identities remaining a mystery to the public, everyone assumes the bad guys have gone back to their old ways. Wolfie views this as an opportunity to help finally get the rest of the city on their side by capturing them. It ends up putting them at a disadvantage though, since Kitty sets it up to make it look like they tried to steal the item that she and her crew were after. And that's how she coerces them into helping them. If they refuse, Diane's identity as the Crimson Paw gets revealed to the public, and they take the fall for their crime. You might not see the parallels of her and Marmalade right away, but the basic ideas of their plans are similar. They're using the bad guys for the parts they can't do themselves, the biggest difference being there's no twist surrounding it. No, I'm not a twist villain detractor. Tropes become that in media for a reason, and it is a trope that can be and has been done well. Marmalade's relationship he cultivates cultivates with the bad guys after they get arrested at his award ceremony do line up with this twist. He wants to convince the world they're good so he can lure them to the gala where he can steal the meteorite and blame them for it. The events that set his plan in motion once they're revealed, though, aren't the most cohesive. It's all contingent on one moment he shares with Wolfie disguised as that old lady, and if his plan is just to get the bad guys to do all the parts of his heist he can't, like breaking into the guinea pig testing lab, that being how it starts is made worse in retrospect because it means he has no way of knowing if the way he gets the bad guys to work for him in the first place will even work. What I'm trying to get at here is that I like how the girls have more precision with their methods and manipulation. You can make a case for their plan at the wrestling arena having the same problem, but don't forget the thing that led them to this location was finding out about Snake's relationship with Doom, and that's what causes them to let their guard down. Do y'all think she was the one that got him into Sabrina Carpenter, or did he find her on his own? Leave me a comment. How the girls manipulate them also creates a lot more tension for the entire movie's duration. The stakes aren't just stopping the villains, it's making sure that Diane's identity is kept a secret and evading law enforcement to avoid reincarnation. I still enjoy Marmalade, he's not bad. He's even well integrated into this movie, but these three are the superior antagonists.
Big crime nerd.
Fun fact, this movie is what finally got me to start watching Orange is the New Black for the first time. Ironic how two of the three voice actresses have experience playing criminals in one of the most critically acclaimed shows of the 2010s, and how the other two movies they were in this year wasted their talents. Much of what makes Kitty such a fun antagonist is Danielle Brooks' vocal performance, doing so much to bring this character's charisma, deceptiveness, and intimidation to life, representing a darker outcome of circumstances analogous to the guys while remaining her own unique character. She has a philosophy about her line of work she shares with Wolfie that functions as a motif to the franchise as a whole. Heists are a power move, and making them memorable is just as valuable as the loot being stolen, if not more so. Prior to going good, the bad guys were the epitome of that ethos with the extravagance of all their heists. You can easily see why she and the other girls are influenced by them. We get a great scene with her and Wolfie where she talks about how she came to have that mindset and why this heist carries a lot of personal weight. She, on some level, is also just motivated by power, but there's an added layer of depth as to why, and that makes for a fascinating character. A source of tension between her and her crew comes up later in the movie that's related to it, and I think it's well built up to due to her established investment and how her connection with the bad guys differs from theirs. Doom's relationship with Snake was a lot funnier than I expected and proves to be more fleshed out than the trailers presented. I can understand why people aren't a fan of it. Trust me, I'm aware of Fluffy Venom's prevalence in the fandom, but I think seeing how it plays out in the film will win some of its detractors over. Remember, just because a ship is made official in the canon doesn't make your headcanon less valid. Speaking of bad guy ships, Wolfington. Pierre Parafel's comics he draws of them on Instagram and how in general he doesn't seem at all shy about his desire for them to become a couple, yeah, it got me more excited about the prospect of it too. I do wish they were able to get more scenes together and more time was spent on how Diane's past influences her current actions and headspace, but their interactions with each other are still cute, and his desire to protect her identity along with hers to keep the bad guys out of trouble shows how much they care about each other. It's very obvious based on the marketing that DreamWorks is aware of how popular they are as individuals and as a couple amidst the furs.
The art of misdirection. Not bad.
And that's an official edit on their Twitter page too. I saw this one interview from Pierre Parafel talking about how they were able to get a fan base of kids and adults and was like, Pierre, just acknowledge the contributions of the furs. They've done a lot for this franchise. You just rarely see animated films indulge that part of their audience like this. Looks like we'll see if that becomes the new norm in a few months. I don't want to spend too much time talking about adaptation. Perhaps that'll be something I do in the future, but this movie does continue the trend of subtly paying homage to its source material in spite of how different it is from it at this point. From Easter eggs like Marmalade's tattoos referencing issue 6, the entire opening feeling like a tribute to Tarantula's origins from the book in issue 2, and the climax taking inspiration from issue 5 by having a major milestone in their ongoing journey occurring in space. Without spoiling anything, the ending does exactly what I said I wanted when talking about Little Lies and Alibis a few months back. They're still able to grow as characters with the changing circumstances, but without losing the attributes that make them endearing, and giving them a chance to still use their skill sets in a way that's different, but just as entertaining to watch. It's a commanding answer to the question of if they can carry a franchise without their villainous past being the only thing holding it together. together and letting them move forward. That's how this movie redefines the franchise's ethos as a whole, because as a team, their dynamic shouldn't be defined by that. It isn't often that DreamWorks does explicit teases for future installments, but the one they have here got me so giddy about what's next. Do I think it's better than the original? Well, as one of the original's most passionate defenders, the quality gap isn't as wide as other people's, but I'd say that it is still the better of the two, even though it's not perfect. Pacing is a big issue in both of these movies, and this one has a lot going on to the point where certain plot developments feel rushed and underdeveloped, like everything involving Diane. But like I said, time does fly when you're having fun. Oh, and while the actual ending of the movie did leave me excited, the post-credit scene did have me raising my eyebrows a bit. I'm glad this movie seems to be getting more people into the books, but those people are gonna realize real quick that they only get more and more out there conceptually as they go along. A lot of crazy stuff happens in them, some of which I'm opposed to DreamWorks adapting on principle, because I know they wouldn't do it well. Okay, so there is one specific aspect of this film that I've been intentionally avoiding, and it's not because it's bad, quite literally the opposite. And it is a character, one that I knew was going to be everything I wanted and more, but when I actually saw this character in action, it just filled me with so many emotions that I don't really know if I can fully express the words for. And you know what? I can't do it anymore. I will not be silenced. I need to speak my truth and talk about this character. I'm of course referring to Mr. Shark. Did y'all actually think that I was not gonna talk about him in a video related to this franchise? If so, you're probably new here and welcome to the channel. Follow me on Bluesky and support me on Patreon. Sharky is just as perfect in this movie as ever. I love all the new disguises he wears, I love how varied they are, the running gag about him acting impulsively whenever he's panicked never gets old and has great payoff in the ending. Even when he's not wearing a disguise, he's just so cool. You can tell how much enthusiasm and dedication he has to both the team and where he fits in it. I've got way more to say about him in that big character analysis I'm doing that'll be out later this year, but the short version is that he once again proves why he's my favorite bad guys character. Not by a long shot anymore, but still my favorite nonetheless. So yeah, go see this movie in theaters if you get the chance, and look forward to me talking about it more in the future.